A chilling silence enveloped the room, broken only by slow echoing drip of water somewhere in the darkness. Choi slowly opened his eyes, and a deep groan left his lips as his head hurt due to the hit that made him unconscious. His half-opened predatory eyes looked around the grey room, trying to look for the threat. His wrists were tightly bound to a chair, the rough rope biting into his skin. Remembering what he was doing before going unconscious, a frown made its way to his forehead as he was trying to figure out who did this, thinking, "Tai, this kid can't even hurt a fly to save his life. But if someone else, me, then where is this kid now? Is he even alive or a failed wine already?" Joy kept thinking while keeping his head down, staring at the floor, when he heard heavy footsteps echoing in the distance, growing louder. He looked up as two familiar faces emerged out of the shadows, looking deadly calm yet serious. For a solid minute, Joy kept staring at their faces, unmoving, and same goes to the boys. "Listen, Joy." Leaned forward with a serious expression to get face to face, but leaned back after staring at him for a few seconds. Whispered to Jungkook, "What was that?" Whispering back, "I forgot my lines." He was looking really scary up close. Embarrassed, but tried not to show it to Joy. Scoffed at JK and tried to man up. "Joy, by now you must have realized how serious I am. And scared too." Straight expressions. Jungkook muffled his laugh by covering his mouth with his hand and turning his back at Joy. Taehyung, who was trying his best to sound intimidating a moment ago, choked on his own breath as Joy caught his act. Jungkook again faced Joy and started patting Taehyung's back while avoiding eye contact with Joy. "You are the one tied up. You don't get to gulps to intimidate us." "Really?" Raised his brow at Tae as now he was enjoying. "Because right now you two look like you are about to wet yourselves. We are the bosses here." His voice cracked due to fear. "Is that so? Okay then, what do you want?" Both boys were speechless as they didn't know that they would make it till now. Scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "We didn't really think this through," softly mumbled. Cleared his throat loudly while throwing a glare at Jake and finally setting his gate at Joy. "Call her back." "No." "Please." "No." "Pretty please." Puppy eyes. Awkward silence. "No." "And never make this expression ever again." "Okay." Out sadly. Smacks Jake and whispered, "You're ruining the vibes. Stick to the plan and look scary." Sighs heavily and looks at Tae. "If you keep chasing her, you'll get her. She did not ask me to save your life over and over just so you could throw hers away." Taehyung's expression darkened at the mention of leaving wine. He glared at Choi as Choi's words started sinking in. He did not respond, but his silence spoke volumes. Choi sighed again, seeing his stubbornness, before speaking again, this time his tone softening slightly. "Forget your kid and stay safe. If you want to help her, live the life she fought so hard to give you." Gave Tae genuine advice. "Forget her?" A sadistic chuckle left his mouth. "Never. Not while I breathe." Letting out a defeated sigh, Choi tried to change the topic as he felt trying to make Tae understand about the dangerous situation is same as trying to teach a donkey how to ride. "Did you even thought about your rapport or your career before me?" Chill and anyone who tried to harm any of the mentioned things, proudly announced as he remembered what she did to those directors. "Not if you are the one behind the destruction." Tae got quiet again until Jungkook decided to motivate his friend to go crazy. "Don't listen to him, Tae. He's just trying to psych you out." Immediately glared at Choi. "How dare you? Now you'll see my worst side." "I would love to." Mocked him. Clenched his jaws. "Call her or else? Or else?" Raised his brow in amusement. Clearly panicking, Tae whipped out and held it to his own wrist. "You see this? If you don't cooperate, I'll cut myself and faint right here. Then you'll have to deal with Jungkook alone. And trust me, he's the worst." "Rude." Shot Tae a betrayed look. Mouth open as he went in shock due to their dumbness. "Is this a threat or a cry for help?" Blinked in disbelief. "Both." Whispered under his breath. "You don't have much time, Choi," shouted while gesturing wildly with the almost dropping it twice. "No, leave that knife. It's not a toy." Watching Tae being so clumsy with the knife, an unknown concern grew in him, and he himself could not believe why he was feeling threatened for real. "Make the call if you don't want him to take the rustic wires." Are you even his friend? No, I'm his brother-in-law. I'll end you, snapped at JK. And you, faced her again. Don't test me. You really think begging and self are valid negotiation tactics? Unbelievably unimpressed. Didn't she ask you to protect me? I'll end myself right here. And when she returns to clean up the mess, she'll start with you. Wow, you really made a threat out of your pathetic stunt. Impressed. You're trying to convince me that you're about to off yourself and you can't even hold the knife right? It's almost cute how bad you are at this. Will you stop roasting me? Done expressions. Okay. Answer my one question and I might help you. Ask. What if she moved on from you and is with someone else now? Tai clamped his hand over his mouth as tears welled up in his eyes, fighting desperately to hold them back, but it was no use. His shoulders shook with the effort to stay composed, but a single tear slipped down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly, but more followed. His breath became uneven, and his hands trembled. What? Panicked as he made a grown man cry. I didn't mean. I was just asking. Tried to explain himself to JK, who was throwing glares at Choi. See? You made him cry. He is very sensitive. You should have known that by now. Gave Choi pissed expressions as he once again patted Thai's back in an attempt to console him. A sob broke out as Thai started crying like a kid lost at carnival. It was the kind of cry that made you want to protect him, to wrap him up in warmth and tell him everything would be okay. It was painful, but there was something undeniably cute in how his face contorted, in the way his voice trembled. It was raw, unfiltered emotion, something so utterly human and vulnerable. It could melt anyone's heart, and Choi was no exception. You are such an idiot, kid, sighed as he finally gave up. Give me the phone, I'll make the call. Looked at Choi with hopeful, teary eyes, and spoke after wiping his nose with the back of his sleeve. Really? What will you say to her? Jungkook took out the phone from Taehyung's back pocket and raised his pro at Choi to tell them Vine's number. Open my wrist so I can talk to her. And end us before doing that. No thanks. Yeah, we are not that dumb. That dumb? His nose flared up in annoyance. We are not dumb at all. We are just cute. Should I sleep if you are not finished yet? Frustration was evident on his whole existence. Number? I don't have this number. Do you have her any number? Roasted him once again. Whatever. Rolled his eyes.